Great.
All right, gang, let's do it. Tonight, we are hanging out with Jordan Wright. Jordan has spent his career working in property management in a variety of roles. Starting in the self-storage industry, he oversaw the operations of 53 Class A self-storage properties across 7 states. In addition to his experience in commercial property management, Jordan also spent time as an asset manager for a portfolio of 37 multifamily properties across 5 states. He worked directly with property management companies to facilitate operations. During that time, he noticed a gap, in the property management field and asked the question, how can we make this better? That thought prompted Jordan to co-found Harvest Property Management through his vision of a culture that treats people right and strategic growth with the right clients. Harvest works to provide a unique level of detail to the properties they manage. Jordan, my friend, welcome.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me. Well, as Nico said, I'm the co-founder of Harvest Property Management. We came from an area of just trying to do things differently, which is going to kind of be what I speak on today as we jump into kind of choosing the right property manager and choosing how to kind of partner with the right property manager. I'm going to run you through a few things. As owners, I think most people here are in some form or fashion invested in multifamily, determining your role as an owner, determining your goals as an owner, getting to know the management company and determining some goals there, and then just really digging into the approach of property management. We're going to keep this pretty informal today, so we'll answer questions. Feel free to chime in, raise hands, whatever you want to do to kind of go, and we'll kind of keep it as an open Q&A type deal as I jump through here.
Jordan, sorry, before you go further, I just want to add that Jordan is actually managing one of our properties, 68 units in Wichita, Kansas. And my personal experience has been absolutely positive. And he's been a top-notch property manager, always upfront and always making everything easy. So thank you very much, Jordan.
Yeah, thanks, Joseph. That's great to hear. And that's kind of testament, I think, to how we're trying to do things. As Nico said in my bio there, we noticed a gap in the market in really anybody can do property management. It is not hard. What we found is nobody scales well, and the attention to detail and the level of detail that it takes to truly manage a property and to do it well is an extreme challenge for even some of the largest management companies out there. So what we've tried to do is we've hired well. We've been very strategic in our in our hiring of managers, and we've also been strategic in who we partner with. And that goes both directions, both from an owner standpoint on who you guys are partnering with from a property management company, but also from a standpoint of who we're partnering with and choosing to grow with. And that's really kind of my first point is, as owners, I think as you're thinking about choosing your property management company or continuing to partner with your existing property management company, is determining your role. How involved do you want to be as an owner with that management? I mean, we see it all over the board as far as involvement goes. The biggest challenge with the management, I think, is the acquisition versus the development versus the property management is figuring out where you want to spend your time. I think part of the challenge of property management is what no one realizes, and this is where I talk about scaling it. Nobody realizes that management's going to take 95% of your time, and just getting lost in those details. So it's really hard to do both the acquisitions or the development and the property management side well. It comes back to some of that opportunity cost as an owner of knowing where you want to spend your time and where you want to give up the opportunity. What so often happens is owners will decide they're going to self-manage or work closely with a kind of an in-house management team that they have hired, not realizing that, hey, this is taking 95% of my time, and what opportunities am I giving up? What did I not work on the next deal because I was so caught up in tenant issues or evictions or whatever that may be? that then is costing money through opportunity costs on the next deal. That kind of leads into determining your goals as an owner from both a growth standpoint. Part of our deal with Harvest Property Management is we're working hard to grow with the right clients, where we're in a heavy growth phase. We started Harvest back in October of 2020, right in the heart of the pandemic, which is a little nerve-wracking. I quit my full-time W-2 job to jump out, starting managing one commercial property. That was a little nerve-wracking, kind of a leap of faith, not knowing what the next month, 2 months, 6 months was going to hold. In a year and what are we at, 4 months now, we've grown that to 21 properties. We're managing 325 multifamily doors, and then we're pushing probably 500,000 square feet on the commercial side. Further testament to trying to do things right and treat clients right and partnering with the right clients. It's all about the return. It's all about putting money back in everybody's pockets. We are approaching property management as a partnership with our clients, where it's not a service that we offer. Our clients are not just coming to us and saying, hey, we need to hire someone. What they're doing is they're coming to us, and we're then turning that back around and saying, hey, we're looking for partnership from a management side, where when we succeed, you succeed, and vice versa. And that's where it's important as you're talking through whether it's choosing property management or determining if you have the right property management in place. What does growth strategy look like for you? But also, what does growth strategy look like for the property management company? I'm going to use Joseph as an example. His property that we manage here in Wichita is 68 doors. But what's our growth strategy look like as he's looking at taking on his next property or his next 5 properties? Does the property management company have the capacity to be able to take that as a true partnership? We get to know each other well enough where we're able to say, hey, yes, this is for us, or no, we're really good with 68 doors. We have no desire to grow any further. That's an important question to ask as you guys are looking at figuring out who you want to use as property management, or if you want to continue down the same path that you're currently on. The other part of determining your goals as an owner is determining your monetary goals. Sometimes it's not feasible to hire management. You have to pull that in-house. But if you can afford it and the numbers work on the deal, what kind of management are you looking for? Are you looking for more of an a la carte type service, or are you looking for, hey, so who's going to go out and get me the best return on what I'm looking for? And yes, you're paying a 5%, 6%, 7% management fee, but what are those returns looking like on the back end, because you have professional management that you've partnered with in place? And then determining your goals on is it a hold versus flip? If you're approaching the property management as a true partnership, they're going to be able to help you succeed in those goals of hold versus flip, depending on what direction you're going. What we found is transparency is so important for us. Just knowing, hey, if your goal is to flip a property, great. We're going to push rates as hard as we can. We're going to get appraisals to come in where they need to. We're going to get rents and occupancy to where it needs to go, so that you can then flip that and get it where it needs to go. If the goal is holding it, we're going to go for that long-term play, because we've partnered with you in this, and we're going to get that slow, steady growth that maintains versus those high rises, but then the low dips, and we're gonna help you get to where you're at there. I think another big part as an owner is getting to know the management company and knowing what their goals are as well. I kind of touched on it briefly before, but knowing where the growth mindset of a management company is. Again, if you're taking 5 more properties, or you're taking 250 more doors, does the management company have the capacity for that? Knowing the goals of the management company from a monetary standpoint, what is the outlook of expenses look like? Something we pride ourselves on is we treat the money like it's our own. Part of interviewing a property management company is kind of knowing where they stand on how they'd handle certain situations as far as expenses go. I'm tight, I'm cheap. So there's probably scenarios where I could probably spend a little more money in some situations, but knowing that we're keeping costs down, we're keeping the NOI up, and being able to then present that to our ownership groups and say, hey, look at kind of where we've been, and then determining, do those goals align between ownership and management, and is the partnership really aligned well? Any questions on any of that so far? Okay.
A little bit of like a practical
Fantastic.
question.
Yeah, throw some questions out there for me, Joseph, or anybody else that may have anything.
So I have a question. At what stage, because we have all, active investors here, like, and beginners as well, like at what stage of the real estate acquisition side would you recommend to engage property management company? Let's say I'm the newbie and I just got the property that under contract, or
Yeah,
even before the contract. What do you say?
I would say as soon as possible. Again, it comes back to approaching that as a partnership. Something that we do for our clients is we don't start charging immediately. Part of that partnership and part of the good faith and growth is being able to then help put eyes on a property. So you're in the stage of due diligence. Who's handling that for you? The property management company is going to be able to come in. They're going to be able to point things out, especially as a newbie that you're not necessarily looking at, because we all learn by trial and error, right? We got mistakes we've all made, especially on that first deal where we're like, man, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I can see Angel up there laughing at that. You just have no idea until you've been in it. So I would say engage as soon as possible. If you've got a management company that's worth their salt at all, they're not going to start nickel and diming you right away. What they're going to do is they're going to come in and they're going to approach that and say, hey, I know that this group's looking to grow, and yes, they're only handing me 68 doors right now, but who knows where they're going to be in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, etc.
Okay, great.
Thank
you very much.
Jordan, have you ever come across a situation where in year one, let's say there are some heavy turns going on and the owners are not hitting their marks or something, and you need to kind of work with them somehow to keep them afloat? Maybe they're struggling that first year or so during some during takeover. Have you ever experienced that, and how would you approach that?
Now, when you say keep them afloat, Nico, give me a little more detail there.
Me personally, recently we were looking at a deal, and we were, it was a heavy lift, and we were going with the bridge debt, and it was looking tight, basically zero returns year one. Now, have you ever come across that scenario with some operators really struggling that first year to kind of just scrape by?
Yeah, and that again, I think that I know I keep harping on the partnership of that, but when everybody's truly got everybody's best interest in mind, I'm going to scratch your back and you're going to scratch mine, and that means, hey, we may have to figure out how we're doing this, or how we're getting creative on the management of it, especially as far as taking a fee goes. But knowing that, hey, it may come next month, it may come 6 months from now, we'll figure this out and we'll get it taken care of. We've got a deal going right now. It's a smaller property, but we've got 24 doors of duplexes, and the property just sold 2 weeks ago. It was a property we were already managing, and the new owners have come in and basically said, hey, we'd like to remodel basically every single one of these units. And so we're figuring out game plan on how we're going to evict some of these tenants, and how we're going to kind of figure budget to cash flow as we look at this heavy, very heavy turn on basically 3/4 of these units.
Awesome. Yeah, and I thought I saw another question in the chat, but if not, I will ask a question.
Natalie had a question.
Okay.
Natalie, you can unmute yourself and speak up.
Hey, Jordan, nice to meet you. I I had a question, like which states are you currently managing, and what states would you be willing to manage, and what would be the minimum unit size that you would be willing to manage?
Yeah, good question. So currently we are managing in Kansas. We have high aspirations, so we don't want to stay in just Kansas. We'll be taking a property, a roughly 150 unit property in Colorado later this year, or potentially early 2023, depending on when construction is finished. It's brand new development. We like the Midwest. That's not to say we wouldn't go anywhere, but obviously it has to make sense from an infrastructure standpoint for us. Getting to minimum portfolio size or minimum property size, really that kind of just depends. It depends on kind of where the property is located, how easy it is to get to. My entire career has been spent managing properties remotely. As you heard from my bio, I was managing 53 self-storage properties across 7 states. That's what we do. It's the remote management is not as much of a challenge as most people think, as long as the infrastructure is in place with the management company. And I think the biggest thing as far as the unit count goes is, does the property justify having an on-site manager? Can you have boots on the ground basically 100% of the time? Whether that's a part-time position or a full-time position that can be flexible, but is there a justification to have an on-site staff person versus what I would call a satellite property? Does that answer that question?
Yes, it does. Thanks, Jordan.
Yeah.
What unit number, Jordan, would you recommend to have full-time on-site manager?
Full-time on-site, you're probably just shy of 100 doors for somebody full-time, probably in that 75 to 85 unit range. And also that's going to depend on where you're at in the country and kind of what costs look like as far as employment costs. Right now, I think our smallest we have that has a full-time manager on it is right around 100 doors. But that's not to say some of the smaller properties couldn't justify that. But again, part of the expense management on our end is we like keeping the cost down. So there's some properties that could probably justify a full-time person if it was absolutely necessary, but we like to run part-time if possible.
Okay, thank you. Ian, you can unmute yourself and ask a question.
Awesome. Hey everyone. Hey, good catching up earlier, Jordan, in the little chat room. So just obviously as an investor, when you're doing your due diligence on a apartment deal and there's a current property management company in place, what sort of key indicators or red flags should you be looking out for when you're assessing whether to keep the current property management company or not?
Very first thing I look at is, and I know I keep harping on this, but expenses. What expenses are coming back to the management company? What expenses are going to any on-site payroll? And then what expenses are completely out of whack? There are scenarios. We took over a property recently. It's a 120 unit apartment complex, and the owners approached us and they said, hey, something just doesn't seem right with the current management. Would you guys take a look at this for us? It didn't take me 4 seconds to get into their income statement. They're spending $3,700 a month on office supplies. So we're like, okay, hold on, they must have something coded wrong. Let's pull the next month. Well, same thing. It was like $1,500 the next month. Let's pull the next month. Same thing. So we kind of put together an analysis on what we thought was going on, and we never did track down any office supplies within that office. So that money was going somewhere. I think that's probably the biggest thing in digging into those financials, because that'll be a telling picture on that front end before you even talk to a single person.
Cool, thank you. Bill.
Thanks, Joseph. Thanks for doing this, Jordan. This is great.
Yeah.
I was a property manager for a few years, and now I'm asset manager on some bigger assets, transitioning from a manager on 2 different deals, a 16 unit and a 40 unit. And I'm learning from,
Yeah.
now just being on that asset management side with other property managers. But I'm curious on your breakdown on a 40 unit or a 68 unit like Yosef's, where breaking down that gross management fee, occupancy fees, the labor rate for like work orders, what I'm being surprised by once you get into a turnover or a remodel, I'm finding the manager brings in a sub or even does it in-house and charges like it's a contractor, where breaking it down, where I have a good idea of what that would cost, but something I think would cost $3,000 or $4,000. Next thing you know, my manager's doing it in-house and charging me $8,000 or $9,000. What is your structure like?
Yeah, so we handle it a couple different ways, and it comes back to the level of comfort for ownership. We've got some owners that want to hire contractors, licensed contractors for everything. We've got other owners that say, hey, do this with your in-house management team. But I think the biggest thing there is knowing what you're getting into on the front end as far as a budget goes. When we handle it in-house, what we will typically do is the make readies are part of the management as far as I'm concerned, with the exception of if you're doing a heavy rehab. Our management agreements typically say anything over $5,000 would be considered a heavy rehab. We're going to collect a percentage of the cost of that job, but that's a known cost on the front end. So we're not just running up that bill saying, hey, what we thought was going to cost $7,000 really actually cost $15,000, and we're going to collect a percentage of that. No, we get to collect a percentage of what the bid was on the front end. So if we, under our supervision, have a contractor or one of our maintenance guys who doesn't perform, we don't get to continue billing for that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. When you're doing turnover or light turnovers, work orders, are you charging an hourly rate, or do you have a different hourly rate depending on low level work, electrical work, plumbing work, and so forth?
Yeah, we've got kind of a tiered system, and we've got it's different between ownership groups. So if the property justifies having a maintenance guy on site, he's our employee, but we bill that back 1 for 1. So if he makes $18 an hour, we bill back at $18 an hour. Now plus unemployment and all the expenses that come along with the employment costs. If it's a property that doesn't justify having an on-site maintenance person, or maybe that for whatever reason that owner just doesn't want to deal with that, we will bill back for normal maintenance repairs at a X dollars. If they're coming in for a heavy plumbing repair or electrical work, we then jump up to the next tier. And then if it's anything HVAC related and we have to send somebody out that's an HVAC certified tech, we'll bill back at a higher rate. Still about a fraction of what calling in an HVAC contractor would be.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I could ask a question, I guess. So I have my question here, but all right, let's do it. So expenses, have expenses gone crazy? Talking, I guess, particularly in inflation. And like for example, I used to underwrite deals a couple of years ago, and I was getting $5,000 a unit in expenses, $5,500. Now this is obviously taking into account more than just materials, right, and cost of labor. But now, like today, I underwrote a deal and I was closer to $9,000 a door in expenses per year. So what's going on, man? Supply chain issues and expenses going crazy?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything. I think it's the supply chain. I think it's people realizing, or suppliers realizing, hey, there's demand out there. Let's take advantage while we can, which ends up hurting us. And then the maintenance market, or the labor market, is just insane. What we used to be able to hire for $15 an hour, as far as a maintenance guy goes on site, we're now not getting out of bed for less than 22 an hour. And then they want all the benefits, and they want vacation time and all that, and that adds to the bottom line on expenses. So yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything right now. In just, you used to pay $300 for a dishwasher. That $300 dishwasher now costs $450. That's significant when you've got 80 of them you're replacing across an entire portfolio in a year. That adds up.
Awesome, thank you. Let's get Angel's question first. I also wanted to welcome those people that jumped in. Kim, awesome to see you. Lance, Dennis, thank you guys. Angel.
All right. So we kept our PMC. We kept the PMC that the previous owner had on the property that we just acquired in December of 21. And I mean, it was doing fine. It was cash flowing then, but we've tweaked it some. And I think sometimes they're not hearing what we're saying. I mean, the property's doing fine, but like we keep asking, hey, can we get a CapEx schedule? And it's just not coming. So like how would you suggest getting them on our page instead of the previous owner's page?
Okay. How many doors is the property?
72.
72. And how many, do you know roughly how many doors that management company is currently managing?
5 complexes, maybe 6 in the area. So,
Okay.
oh, I don't know, 1,000, 1,200.
Okay. Yeah, but the reason I asked the question is kind of what kind of weight do you pull with that management company? Is 72 doors a drop in the bucket, or is that half their business?
Oh, I'm little fish.
Yeah, and I think that's probably part of your challenge in retraining is often harder than training new. Because they're used to bad habits. It's harder to retrain bad habits than it is to just start fresh. It's kind of like hiring a new employee. If they don't realize what bad habits they've already developed, they don't have any habits to start. So you get to start fresh with that. I think you're probably at the point of ultimatum of, hey, here's what we expect moving forward, or we're gonna start looking elsewhere. The challenge in that is once you're ready to deliver that, they're gonna tank everything. So I think you kind of have to know what direction you might go prior to having that conversation. Yeah, not the answer you wanted, I know.
No, it's not, because we're like a tertiary market. We're 2 hours from DFW. We don't have a lot of options.
Okay.
Well, Angel, quick question. Other than asking something and they're not producing it, what about the other performance? Like they're performing well overall?
They really are, but it seems like we need to get going on. We need to get going on the CapEx stuff. And you know, when are you going to get the when are you going to get these appraisals? Like when are you going to give us some numbers to work with? And just it seems like we're getting put off a lot, but it makes more sense when you're saying, you know, how many, you know, what are we pulling out of the entire portfolio that our regional is looking at? And she's not that it's a big deal, but like she's about to go out on maternity leave. So, and we picked it up in the middle of December. So it took us a couple of months to get into a groove because everybody was on vacations. It took us a little bit for everybody to get to the meetings. They had some staffing changes, and her due date is like the beginning of April. And it's just like,
So will she, I would assume she'll have somebody kind of fill in her role when
oh,
when
she
she's on
absolutely
maternity.
will, but then I don't know.
Yeah. I'd say you're probably not getting a fair test until you're about 6 months in.
Okay.
Give it that time, especially as you guys get to know each other. I think that's it's kind of like that dating relationship, right? You're not getting married after 2 months in most scenarios, and making it work. Give it some time to kind of get to know each other and see where you're at from there. And I guess my next question would be, how often are you guys talking?
We have a meeting I think it's every Friday.
Okay,
And
so you're talking once a week.
yeah, so I recently moved out of like running the meetings because I'm like, you don't want me running these meetings, because I'm like, fact, this is where we need to be. Don't you like me? Like, why can't you just do what you're supposed to do? Don't you like me? And so I stepped away from that role. I'm like, guys, somebody else has got to do this. I can't do it. Because I'm really good at relationships, but not when it comes to like oh wait, Nico, you'll get this. I feel like I'm back in the classroom and I'm getting onto a student and everybody else is averting their eyes and that student's getting defensive. That is how it feels for me to lead a PMC meeting.
Was there an expectation set prior to, like, hey, we're going to get X, Y, and Z done by X month?
I thought so.
Yeah. Did they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why somebody else is running the meetings now.
Yeah, I mean, you can only be so clear in communication. So if you guys are talking regularly, what I was afraid is you're going to tell me, hey, we're only talking every 6 weeks or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But if you're having those regular conversations and you're giving kind of action items of, hey, before we talk next Friday, I'd like to see these 3 things completed, and they're not, then I think it's time to start looking elsewhere, because you're at that point, if they're not open to any kind of change, you're never going to retrain.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jordan. Just piggyback upon that. Like how much is enough in terms of communication, and in what way, what method, and like what is too much from property management perspective?
Yeah, well, I will tell you, there is a such thing as too much, especially from our standpoint. Is you have hired us to run your property. There has to be that level of trust. Now it's different when you're inheriting a property management company, because you don't know what you're getting. You maybe have not had the opportunity to interview like you would have hoped, or maybe you're in a smaller market. Here's how we handle things on our end. Communication is the biggest success or the biggest failure in property management, as far as I'm concerned. We start every client with a weekly call. Again, I relate it back to dating. You're getting to know each other still. So every new property we take, we talk ownership via either Zoom or a conference call, depending on the owner's preference, at least once a week. We'll usually run that for, I'm going to say, 6 to 8 weeks, depending on level of comfort at that point. And then we back off to either every 2 weeks or once a month. And again, it just depends on how the property's performing at that point. And size of the property, how involved ownership wants to be as far as what they're wanting to push on, et cetera. Or is it hey, you hand it to management and they go and do their thing? Part of our deal with the partnership is we'll defer to owners on that level of comfort. So like Yosef's group, for example, I talk with them every other week via Zoom. And that seems to work out really well. I've got other ownership groups we talk with once a month. I've got other ownership groups that I have to beg for them to talk to me at all, because they're like, hey, we just want to be completely hands off. So at a minimum to start, I'd say once a week, and then back off to every 2 weeks to once a month. Now I will add one thing to that real quick, Yosef, is that doesn't mean there's not regular communication in between. Especially from a physical needs aspect. We use an app called Cluster that we use to update all of our owners on every single property. And that could be anytime somebody's on site, they may post a photo of something, or hey, we've got this capital expenditure improvement going on, and we'll post progress photos, et cetera. And then that also gives owners the ability to see what's going on, but then B, they have the ability, it's kind of like Instagram, they have the ability to comment or ask questions, et cetera, or post their own photos.
Great, thank you. Let's see. Anyone has any questions? I have one more if I could jump. So when you interview, let's say when you interview a property management company, what kind of questions would you like to have the owner to ask, but that as a property manager that don't want to have, I don't know, like, it's like, okay, if owner is asking me this type of questions, it is a good question, but I don't know how I should answer that. Is there such a question?
Yeah, and I think transparency always wins. I think if if you've got a property manager that is passionate about what they're doing, they're probably asking more questions than the owner at that point, because both parties are interviewing each other. I get excited when there's the prospect of taking a new property and, hey, how are renewals? What are current market rents like, et cetera? What value add is there in the property? Because that's the stuff that kind of gets the juices flowing and gets gears turning on where we can add our value. And then it becomes a conversational piece at that point of knowing what direction we can go with the property. From an owner standpoint, I mean, as far as asking questions goes, it ends up being so conversational that I don't necessarily know that I have a specific set of questions that you should be asking, but it's one of those feelings that I think you'll trust your gut on knowing what direction you're going.
Okay, thank you. Lance, you raise your hand.
Hey, what's up, guys? How's it going? So I got two questions. I'll ask the easy one first. When you guys are turning a unit, right, you paint the molding semi-gloss white and the walls a different color, or do you stick with one color? Is it worth extra labor going for the two-tone look? What's your opinion?
I like the two-tone look. I think it's one of those things. Perception is important. It's one of those things that, think about walking into a hotel room. You may not know why you think it feels dirty, but you can tell that it feels dirty. It's the same thing when you've got a prospective tenant walking into a unit. They may not know what they're feeling, but they know something just feels different. You're going to get a more high-end feel, I think, if you got the two-tone. So in my opinion, worth every penny to spend that extra money.
Sounds good. So what do you got behind you? The two-tone look, or is that all white?
That's two-tone. We got gray on the walls and white on the trim.
Nice. That's what we do to a lot of our units too. All right, next follow-up question. Best renovation under $500 to tweak out an extra $25 on rent. Is it vanities? Is it faucets? Is it hardware? What do you do to push that rent that extra bit without breaking the bank?
Yeah, light fixtures and faucets. Easy answer there. Light fixtures in main living spaces or bedrooms, and the kitchen faucet. I told you earlier I'm budget friendly. We have found a faucet that we like. It's kind of a farmhouse style faucet that we like on Amazon. Usually runs $250 to $300 if you go buy it in the store. We found them for $60, and that is the best investment we've ever made.
Can you share that link with all of us? Is that possible?
Yeah, I'll see if I can track it down, and I'll share it with everyone.
We might cause you some supply chain issues, though. You might regret that. What kind of light fixtures?
Simple LED fixtures. We're finding that people like that minimalist type look. So something that'll hug the ceiling as close as it can, unless obviously you're going with a ceiling fan type fixture, but still, again, stay away from traditional looks. The minimal clean look is really, really hot, at least where we're at.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, if you can share those links with Joseph and Nico, I'd love to take a look and maybe throw them in some of our units, and thank you later with a beer.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, man.
Thanks. Chad, you had a question.
Yeah, so I hear a lot of people talking about either rent turns or renovations on a price per unit basis. I might be mistaken, but I kind of feel that a little bit misleading, especially when various different apartment sizes range from anywhere from 600 square feet to 1,500 square feet. What have you seen on a price per square feet basis for turns and or renovations recently?
Yeah, that's a good point, Chad. That is misleading. Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you what our renovations are per square foot, because just like everybody else, we're running it on a per unit basis. So I wish I had a better answer for you there, but unfortunately I don't.
If anybody else would chime, I mean, we're looking like what I'm seeing up here in the Northeast, $25 to $32 for a light turn, 35 to 40-ish, 32 to 48 or 38 for a medium turn, and over 40 for heavy, which seems pretty high to me right now, but that's what we're seeing. Anybody else have any experience, similar ranges?
What kind of renovations are you doing? Like, what's your hard turn?
That would be like a full gut. full gut with replacement of everything, that's 40 plus, $40 per square foot plus per unit.
So for 1,000 square foot apartment, that's 40 grand.
Yes, sir.
I mean, that seems like in line with what some of the stuff we're doing. So if we don't gut the walls and we just do paint, flooring, kitchen, bathrooms, light fixtures, whole nine, like 12 to 14K, and that's on like a 1,200 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, but that's fiberglass tub enclosures, which we always try to keep. I think you can save
Yep.
a lot of money there. And LVP flooring, so it's like $2 and change per square foot. We use that, not the glue down. And
And
at
that's
12 to 14K, yeah.
that's pretty awesome. I mean, I'm living in the twilight zone up here because we're not even getting close to that. We're like double that up in Pennsylvania. So
I'm in
Yeah.
Pennsylvania too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm in PA too. So like, are you using the same contractors? Are you using a bunch of different subs? Like, why do you pay that much?
we've got 2 different contractors that are working simultaneously, and they're all about the same. They're $22 to $32 a square foot for these 1,200 square foot renovations.
So maybe you should invoice out, like just like get the flooring, get a couple guys in, pay them hourly or weekly, and try to get them to do one job at a time. Maybe if you semi GC it, you can save yourself 10K a unit, maybe, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'll connect with you, Lance. We'll talk. Appreciate it.
Sure.
All right, we got Monica. You can unmute and ask that question.
Hey guys, hey Jordan, good chatting with you on the breakout room too. Just let's see on the make readies. What are you doing basically? What are your standard line items for make ready, and what are your standard line items for even just in speaking with square feet? I want to know if you're going like full gut renovations, and are you doing the same level? Obviously not on B level, C level, A level properties. Like where's the the line for you on these items?
Yeah. Most of what we currently manage, I would say, is B to B plus. It depends on the ownership group, but for the most part, we are doing pretty what I'd call medium turns. We're doing LVP flooring, we're doing painted cabinets, walls, trim, all that. We've been doing, rather than replacing any countertops, we're doing an epoxy on the countertops. We've found that has held up pretty well for us throughout time. But the other thing we like about that is it's easily touched up, where we can have our epoxy company come back in and touch up as necessary. And then, like I said before, we're doing fixtures and faucets on everything. And we're usually, I'd say our average turn on those is running anywhere between 5 to 10 grand, depending on how crazy we get on flooring. And then, so we do the LVP throughout, but we're leaving carpet in the bedrooms as a standard.
Okay, and so you do a full cabinets, and then a full appliance package, like?
Yeah, that's going to depend on the property as well. If appliances are in good shape and it's kind of maintaining the standard of what we're looking for, we're leaving those in place. But I've got 120 unit property that we're replacing appliances on every single turn, getting a black appliance package that we've negotiated rates on, and we go full replacement on that property.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Man, we are just starting to heat up with these awesome, like real questions, real life questions, but I think we're gonna be wrapping it up, Yossi, huh?
Yes, it was a great set of questions. And thank you very much, Jordan, your insight, which is great. I had a great time.
Yeah, for sure. And Joseph and Nico, if you'll just make sure everybody's got my contact information, feel free to publish that for everyone. Again, coming back to things being a partnership and things kind of being good faith and us trying to do this differently, is I'm an open book. You got other questions, you want to shoot me an email, shoot me a list of bulleted questions, whatever. I'm here. I'm here for it.
Awesome. Thank you, man. What's the best email? Is that the one we've been communicating using?
Yep, that's the best one. So yeah, feel free to make sure everybody's got that, and everybody here, feel free to touch base on anything you might need.
Right. Everyone, you heard Jordan, he's a very open book, and based on my personal experience, he's a wealth of knowledge and he shares everything he knows. So if you have any question, reach out for his opinion and insight.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining tonight. We learned a ton of good stuff today. Thank you again, Jordan, for coming.
Yeah,
And
for
we'll
sure.
see you next month.